And I believe we are now live. Welcome, everybody, while we overcome some technical issues with Vassal. We've got our players here. This is going to be a more or less instructional game of the great campaigns of the American Civil War. We're going to use the small scenario that I like to use for this, which is the South Mountains scenario out of Here Come the Rebels 2, which in turn is in the box called Roads to Gettysburg 2. This has, of course, resulted in general confusion all around, and we're still setting everything up. But I do have the room open already, so it's just called Dragoons. And do you guys have a preference as to which side you would like to play? I will tell you that the Union player is on... Neither player has a ton of stuff to work with here. The Union player is on the attack.
I don't have a preference.
Okay. Gordon, thanks for coming. I love the great campaigns of the American Civil War series. It is one of my very favorite series of war games. It sets war games rules. And at some point, I will have all the games in the series, but that may take MMP reprinting onto Richmond to make that happen. Because I'm unwilling to pay what it goes for on the secondary market.
Yeah.
It's only money.
Well, that's true.
If you get up here toward Cleveland, check if Duck in the Matrix. He had a few of the old stuff. Pretty decent.
If I'm up there, I will absolutely check because I am aware that he is a lunatic and has it's like a warehouse, so it's crazy. And he's got a lot of war games actually.
It is the Hoarder game store. Yes, it is.
Okay, HCR.
HCR 3.05 is the one you want, and it's on the Roads to Gettysburg 2 page.
Roads to Gettysburg, okay.
The store we're talking about is called the Warzone Matrix. I've always called it the Warzone because there was a Matrix Games up there that it was sort of affiliated with, sort of. That's a long story. And it's right by Cleveland Hopkins Airport, pretty much. And it's a very small place with games stacked up to the ceiling.
Well, he basically took over 2 stores and cut the wall out in the middle. Mm-hmm. So people can't believe it when they go in there. I took my friend from Rhode Island, her husband, up there, and he says, like, they've got shrink-wrap D&D modules from, like, 1980.
Oh, yeah. He's got a... Yep. It's crazy. If I ever win, like, the Mega Millions or anything like that, I'm going to put about $2 million in a suitcase. I'm going to walk in there. I'm going to hand him the suitcase and say, get out.
What's hilarious is, of course, it's not in the best area of town.
No.
And there's, like, little electronic stores and stuff, like, that have, like, time gates, bars on the doors and stuff. And I always laugh because it's like, if anyone ever knew that the most valuable the most valuable building on that whole block is that one at the end that probably no one wants to go by.
Yeah. Have you ever seen a game store in a good neighborhood?
Yes. Honestly, I'm a little surprised the fire marshal hasn't shut him down.
You're not wrong there. Well, it's funny because, like, you'll go in there like every 16 months and he will like get it in himself to like make it kind of organized and not a complete crazy like almost obstacle course.
Yeah. It's better than it used to be. There used to be just like open boxes of stuff laying around, and sometimes the stuff was literal garbage, like old discarded empty blister packs and stuff. Is like, this is crazy.
So should I choose a side here, or?
Yeah, pick a side.
Okay, so you're gonna have to walk me through the Vassal thing.
That's
not
okay.
my
So
jam.
have you opened the module and it's asking you if you want to start a local game, look for a game online, or load a save game?
It's asking me. It's the first page, so it's asking me name and cred, right?
Okay,
I
so
can
just put in
bounce through that.
Yeah, exactly. You can just put 1 as the password, and then hit next.
Yep, done that. Is it start new game or look for game online?
Look
That's what
for
I want,
look
right?
for a game online.
Okay.
Okay. Now it should open the module. There might be a little bit of delay depending on the computer and Java and all that stuff. And then there should be.
It's open.
Okay, so there should be an active games and current game panel somewhere on that screen.
Active games, Dragoons.
Okay, that's it. Just double click on that. Okay. Now click on the room, the name of the room under current game, and hit sync or synchronize, just to make sure that you can see where we're at. We're kind of in the middle of the map.
It's asking me to join which side,
jo-
so I assume I'm Confederate then.
Finn, if you joined as the Union, then yeah, it will only let you join the sides that are available, so yes.
Yeah, okay. All right, and then click on the room.
And synchronize if you can't see pieces moving around. It may just be fine. You may not have to bother with it.
Yeah, it says synchronization complete.
Okay, cool. So here's the situation, all right? There are 4 hexes that are highlighted in blue. And we're kind of in... You might want to zoom out and then see where all the units are, because this is the area that we have to work with. The Union player is going to... We're going to proceed in a series of impulses, if you will, okay? Where each impulse we will roll the dice, and whoever wins the roll will go first. Or will go, and then we will roll the dice again. It's not an I go, you go. The same person can end up going a bunch of times. You can pass instead of going, in which case the initiative passes to the other person if you've won. We'll get to all this, okay? So here's our situation. There's 4 highlighted hexes that the Union player gets victory points for occupying at the end of the game. The game lasts 1 turn, but there's no particular... that turn will take us a couple hours, right? Because you have no particular reason to save fatigue to the next turn, for example. Yeah. Okay? So, there's this mountainous ridge called South Mountain. And you are, generally speaking, all these lines, the heavy lines and the light lines on the map are roads. Okay? The blue ones are rivers. You are almost always going to move on the roads. And to move on the roads costs 1 movement point, unless you're moving through units, or friendly units, in which case it can cost more. To move, like, across open country, even if it's clear terrain, for example, and if you look just north of Boonesboro, those 3 hexes, that's clear terrain. Clear terrain is 3 movement points to move through, okay? Rolling, which is the rest of the surrounding terrain, this slightly darker green, is also 3. Rough, which if you look around where Cox's division is located, that's rough terrain, that costs 5. And then the hills and mountains cost 5. Mountains are actually prohibited, so you must cross mountains through a road, okay? And there are different roads available here, right? So you've got that... You've got this pass, Fox's Gap. You've got the Hamburg Pass. And you have the other 2 gaps in the ridge, which you cannot go into. So that blue line around Burkittsville, that means that the Union, and Knoxville, actually, that means that the Union can't enter that area. So there's basically 2 places where you have to get through, Fox's Gap and Hamburg Pass. All right? So... Ordinarily, there's like really no special rules to speak of in this particular scenario, other than just the victory conditions, where there's each of those highlighted points is worth highlighted hexes is worth points. Generally speaking, if the Union controls 2 of them, they're worth different numbers of points. But if the Union controls 2 of them, then they'll win. So we're going to let's do a really quick sample activation. And each of you go ahead and hit the 1d6 button. It is on, there you go.
Where is that?
Upper right of the screen.
Look like little moons. I assume those are supposed to be dice, maybe?
Oh, yeah, I get you.
Okay, all right, so Finn, you're the Union, and you've rolled a 6, and the Confederates have rolled a 1. In this particular volume of the series, the Confederates win ties, okay? And that's true in a bunch of the games in the series, but not all of them. A lot of this stuff in the Western theater, it'll be more complicated. So that means that the Union is going to go first. And let's say, for the sake of argument, that you're going to conduct an activation. Now, there's a couple different ways to activate things. You can activate a unit, so you could activate Cox here, for example, and then you'd roll and move Cox. Or you can activate a leader, like Reno here, who can then in turn activate all units subordinate to him within his command range, which is 3 hexes. Generally speaking, you would prefer, you're going to do those 3 activations in order. And I'll also mention that there's 2 kinds of combat. There's assaults and there's march attacks. We're probably going to not see more than at most 2 assaults in this scenario, but we may see some march combat. So let's say you activate Cox, okay? Because he's an infantry unit, you're going to roll 1d6, and you're going to get that many movement points to move him. So if you roll a 3, you get 3 movement points. If you activate a leader, you get 1 extra movement point. So if you activate Reno, and then he activates Cox, you get 1d6 plus 1 movement points. The other variable is that the Confederates always get +1. So if it's a Confederate initiative and the Confederate player activates Colquitt, then he gets 1d6 plus 1. Whereas if the Confederate player activates Longstreet and Longstreet activates, say, John Bell Hood, then that's another +1. So it would be 1d6 plus 2. There is cavalry on the map. There's this 5th Virginia Cavalry for the Confederates. And there's this 8th Illinois Cavalry for the Union. This works exactly the same way, except that when you roll to see how many movement points you get 2d6. For the Confederates, it's 2d6 plus 1. Okay? Any questions so far?
Nope.
Okay, great. So, by special scenario rule, let me say a couple other things here. But by special scenario rule, the Union player wins initiative on the first action. March attacks. So it costs movement to... So march attacks is basically you're attacking on the march, right? And it happens inside movement. And it doesn't necessarily end your turn. If you have 6 movement points and you spend 2 to do a march attack, you still have 4 left at the end, right? However, the more movement points you spend on a march attack, the better the attack is. So you could do a hasty attack, a normal attack, or a prepared attack. For infantry, a prepared attack costs 4 points, a normal attack costs 2 points, and a hasty attack costs 1 point. One additional thing that we should discuss is cavalry's ability to screen. Cavalry in this system actually functions like cavalry did in a historical American Civil War. So if at any point you have a cavalry unit and an enemy unit comes adjacent to your cavalry unit, you can perform what's called a cavalry retreat, which means you move 2 to 4 hexes away. You disorganize the cavalry unit, but then you subtract some movement points from the unit that moved. So you can suck away enemy movement points by performing cavalry retreats. Also, if you're an infantry unit that tries to attack a cavalry unit, the cavalry unit can just leave. So there's an additional opportunity for cavalry retreat inside the combat sequence. All right. So let's get started. The Union player has the initiative. Now, let me point out here that there are 2 Union formations here, plus a cavalry unit, which is its own thing and has to be activated by itself. You have Hooker, who is the general, the army commander. Okay. Well, these are core commands, actually. So you have Hooker's first corps, okay, and those are the gray units, the units with the gray symbols. So that's Meade, Hatch, and Ricketts. And then you have Reno's 9th Corps, and Reno is in charge of Cox's division, Wilcox's division, Sturgis's division, and Rodman's division. The command range, again, is 3 hexes. So everyone that Reno commands is within his command range. But you also have to sequence your moves carefully. So if, for example, Wilcox tries to move through Cox, it's going to cost him extra movement points to move through his own unit. And how many extra movement points depends on the terrain and depends on how many strength points you're talking about that you're moving through. In this case, it would cost him... that's rough. So it would cost him 1 extra movement point to move through Cox. So you want to be careful that you want to take advantage of the road network that you see on the map. And you always want to move on the roads if at all possible. There will be occasions when you need to go off-road for whatever reason. There is also a 1 hex minimum move, by the way, but you can't move into a prohibited hex with a 1 hex minimum move, which includes the mountain hexes. You can't just, you're not mountain troops. So, are we ready to go?
I think so.
Absolutely.
Okay. All right, so Union Commander, you have the choice to activate somebody. You're probably going to want to activate Reno, who will then in turn activate. And there's markers for this, but I've never found them to be particularly necessary. Where you would mark, Cox and Wilcox and Rodman with leader activation markers, and then you would activate them in turn. I never had a problem keeping them straight. So, but it's your call. You can activate anybody you want. You get this you always win this activation, though. Remembering that. Oh, let me talk about the numbers on the counters. Okay, so there's 2 counters in most of the games. This is a new feature in this version of the module that are used to track units. Okay, so if you look at Cox, for example, so he's got a 622. The 2 is his the 2 on the right is his artillery value. The 2 in the middle is his tactical value. That is used to modify fighting that he takes part in. And the 6 is his manpower. In the physical game, you have a manpower marker, and you change that you keep under the unit, and you change it out as you lose manpower. In this case, it's all built in, and there's there's a right-click function in the module where if you right-click and go to manpower, you can increase or decrease manpower or disorganize the unit. So, you may be tempted. Now, if you're gonna activate Reno, then you're gonna roll a d6, and then all of Reno's subordinate activations will get that many movement points. So if it's 1, then and that happens, right? It's like, well, crap. Yeah. I just wasted a whole activation moving 1.
Okay, so yes, let's say I'm activating Reno, which means I'm activating Sturgis, Wilcox, Cox, and Rodman.
Okay.
And so the next thing I do is roll the 1 die?
Yes. And you declare who you're moving before you roll the die, by the way.
Okay, this is... Okay.
Okay. So.
Well, this is for Cox. Well, so in other words, I'm going to roll the die for each...
No, you'll roll it once.
Okay.
And then they all get that.
Okay. So I got a 6.
Okay, so you get 6 movement points. So, you need to decide exactly how you want to proceed with this then. You have manpower. Wilcox and Sturgis have 7 manpower. Cox and Rodman have 6. Colquitt, who's currently occupying Turner's Gap, only has 2 manpower. So maybe you want to charge up there and attack him on a march move.
So
And
the question is, so I had a quick question. So
go ahead.
the smaller, so like in Bolivar, for example, is that also a road that goes up through Mount Tabor Church and then
Yes.
across town?
It totally is.
So I could move Cox up to 3312 and then Wilcox up to 3412 and kind of circle around?
You can, yes, you can absolutely do that. However,
Tell me why.
if you want to attack, well, here's what you need to bear in mind, though. Any attack involving more than one attacking unit is an assault. And you can't just do that. You actually have to have a leader present to do it with.
Yeah, no, I was thinking they'd be two different attacks.
Okay. So yeah, you can attack Turner's Gap from two different hexes. That's absolutely right.
Okay. So, and then along the road, it's one movement point each. So
Correct.
to go to 3412 would be one.
Mm-hmm.
To go to 3312 would be two.
Now, stop right there.
Yep.
Because you have just become adjacent to a Confederate cavalry unit. The Confederate cavalry unit now can say, if Brant wants, this cavalry unit is going to perform a cavalry retreat and potentially remove some of your movement points, which might even eliminate your ability to attack Colquitt. So, Brant, do you want to do that?
So he has 6, right?
Yeah.
And he's used
Two.
Two so far.
So he has 4.
Mm-hmm.
How many does he need to attack?
Only one, but it would be a hasty attack. Hasty attack is
gotcha.
1, normal attack is 2, prepared attack is 4. So what you would do, if you decide you're going to do the cavalry retreat, you're going to say, I'm going to do the cavalry retreat. You're going to roll a d6, you're going to divide by 2 and round down. And that's how many movement points that Cox's unit is going to lose. And then...
So most it'd be 3.
Correct. And then...
Either 3, 2, or 1.
Correct. And then you would disorganize that 5th Virginia Cavalry and retreat it 4 to 6 hexes, actually.
Minimum of 4.
Yes, minimum of 4.
Holy moly. Okay. So no, I'm not going to do that.
Okay, so Cox may now proceed with spending additional movement points.
And I will do a prepared assault on Colquitt.
Okay, it's not an assault, it's a march attack.
March attack.
All right, so here's what's going to happen. It's in the mountains, all right? What that means is that artillery doesn't do anything. There's a +2 combat modifier to the defender, okay? So, we're going to, first of all, compare the manpower. Cox has 6 manpower. Colquitt has 2. That's a 3 to 1. So that each increment there provides a +1 to the roll. So, Finn, you have a +2 for being 3 to 1. The tactical values of the leaders are both 2. So there's if one had been 3, that side would get a +1, but it's a wash in this case. There is also an artillery modifier, but that is irrelevant here in the mountains. The artillery just doesn't do anything. So what we have then is the defender gets a +2 for being in the mountains, and the attacker gets a +2 for having 3 to 1. So it's an even roll. So both of you are going to roll 1d6, and then we're going to subtract the defender's roll from the attacker's roll. Okay, so in that case, the if you want to click on the charts icon, that's the one right next to the little HR2 charts. Huh, cool. And look at the combat chart. So what we're going to look at here is your losses are going to depend on manpower. The net roll, however, is the attacker's roll minus the defender's roll, which is, in this case, -2. The attacker is attacking with 6 combat value. Combat value is independent of manpower, but it's equal to manpower as long as the unit is organized and not disorganized. So you have 6, and you're at -2, so you're going to get the attacker is going to suffer a 1 big D result. So we'll get back to that. And then the defender, defending with 3, is going to get a little f result. Okay? So we're going to do a couple of things here. First of all, we're going to do fatigue on the activating unit. So I'm going to right-click on Cox, go to fatigue, and put increase fatigue on him. You see how he's got that green mark on him now? Mm-hmm. That means it's level 1 fatigue. The defender got a little f fatigue, which means he gets 1 fatigue as well. So we'll do the same thing. We'll increase the defender's fatigue. And then the attacker gets a... let me make sure I'm doing the correct result. It's a 1 big D. Okay, so the 1 means that the attacker loses a strength point. So I'm going to right-click, go to manpower, and hit decrease. Oops, I hit increase instead.
Nope, that was increase.
Yep. Okay. And then we need to note that. Let me pull the notes up. There should be notes here. Are there notes here? Well, I'll write it down on my side. Don't worry about it. We do need to keep track of manpower losses. All right. And then
is an aggregate?
Yeah, because it's victory points. All right.
Okay, gotcha.
And then Cox is also going to be the big D means that he's disorganized and he takes big F fatigue, which is 3 fatigue levels. So he's going to go. We're going to fatigue him. We're going to go. It's what Control Q. So we're going to go 1, 2, 3. And then we're going to go to manpower and disorganize him. And you see now he's got 5 manpower, but only 3 combat value. Okay. So Cox is now at what we call FAT 4 or fatigue level 4, which means he is absolutely done. The only thing that a fatigue level 4 can do is do a cavalry retreat, and he's not cavalry, so he can't cavalry retreat. So Cox is finished. He can defend, and that position might be valuable in defense, but he can no longer attack. Okay. So now the Union player can go and do his second unit activation with somebody else from Reno's division or corps.
Well, that didn't work out very well.
Oh, I disagree.
Yeah.
Now, here, you got a couple options here. You could try and go around him, but that's going to cost more movement points. Or you could go through Cox. It will cost you 1 extra movement point to move into Cox's hex, because it's an occupied hex. And it's not a flat 1 extra movement point. It's 1 extra movement point because of how big Cox is and what the terrain is.
Yeah.
We're not going to see more than 1 extra movement point in this scenario.
So
Is there max stacking?
There is yes and no. There's a maximum unit size, which we're not at in this particular scenario. Maximum unit size for the whole series, and I think this is like Grant Takes Command. You can have up to 21 strength points in a single unit. But there's no stacking limit in the hex per se, but the more manpower that's in the hex, the harder the hex is to enter for additional units, right? So if you put a 7 manpower and a 6 manpower in the same hex, then it's 2 extra movement points to enter that hex. And that's if it's a clear hex, right? If it's like a woods hex or a mountain hex, then it's 4 extra movement points. So nominally there is no stacking limit, but there is a functioning limit that determines how big either stacks can get or units can get.
I mean, you're gonna just clog everything up otherwise. Okay.
Yes.
Which isn't bad for defense, right?
3, 4, 5.
No, not necessarily, because everybody gets to defend if you're attacking a big overstacked hex.
Right, but like in my situation, I stack the gaps, the passes,
Yes.
right? And I can just sit there and let him attack.
Bear in mind, there's an unguarded pass, Hamburg Pass, 3207. So what you're going to want to do is get probably, depending on what Finn does, is get Longstreet down there. Is probably what's going to happen. The other thing, Finn, that you'll need to know is that because Reno is stacked with Sturgis's division, he moves with Sturgis's division right now. So you probably want to arrange it so that when everybody's done moving, they're all still, or as many as possible, are still in command range.
And that's 3, we said, right?
It's 3 hexes, yeah.
Okay. So, no, that's interesting. So to get to Hamburg Pass, though, you got to do like a whole bunch of.
It's a little ways away. Well, you got 6 movements, so it's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. It's 9 hexes away. And bear in mind, the maximum number of activations you can have in a single turn is 4 for a given unit.
So I could leave him up here. Oh, but he's out of command range. Well,
it doesn't matter right this second. So before you move him, you want to fatigue him.
Gotcha.
Because even if you don't move him, if you activate him, he spends fatigue.
Interesting. Okay.
Which is why sometimes, if say you in that situation, you might maybe not want to activate everybody that Reno can activate.
Right. And I really
in this case, you do, but
in this, I mean, I don't even care if Cox is in command range at this point, because he's pretty much done. So. Okay, so Reno and so then they would go. It's now moving Reno and Sturdman. What? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6.
Okay, and then we'll fatigue Sturgis. I got it.
Okay, cool. Thank you.
All right.
Leaders don't fatigue, I guess. Right?
Leaders do not fatigue. That's correct.
Okay. And then Rodman will follow up. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. And then I'll fatigue him. Cool.
Okay. And then that is all of your Union activation. So now, both of you are going to roll 1d6. And it's a tie. Confederates win ties. Okay? So it is now, the initiative now passes to the Confederates. And there's a couple different types of actions you can take on it on your turn. That don't apply in this scenario. Like you can burn railroad stations, for example. We're not worried about that right now. Right now, the only types of activations that are important are unit activations, leader activations, or if you pass, which nobody's going to pass at this point. And if you pass, if the Confederate player were to pass now, then we don't roll again. It goes to the Union player, and then we would roll again after that. Okay. However, I presume that Brent would like to take an activation with the Confederate side.
Yes.
Okay. Now, bear in mind, up by don't miss up by Hagerstown. You've got Longstreet's
right.
A division, and it's a corps, I guess, or elements of a corps. That's probably what you're going to need to plug Hamburg Pass with. Is my guess. But you could also activate Rhodes, who's closer.
Rhodes, yeah. I was looking at that also. Because I'm not going to get there.
Now, bear in mind, you do get a +1 movement point for a Confederate, and if you activate with Longstreet, as opposed to the individual units, you get another +1. So you have a minimum 3 movement points and a maximum of 8 movement points.
But I need 9, right? I can get to Smoketown with 8.
Yeah, that's pretty much correct.
7, 8.
So
I can't get in the pass.
The Confederate gets +1 movement points just across the board for this scenario, or
in this module, that is correct.
Okay, gotcha.
So for all Here Come the Rebels scenarios, that is correct.
We're in the South. They know the area.
Well, we're in Maryland actually. So
yeah, we're in Maryland. Yeah.
Well, what it's doing is it's modeling superior Confederate command efficiency, right? The Confederates were especially at this part of the war. Now, again, if you talk about a scenario that happens in 1864, then that's different. But at this particular part of the American Civil War, then Confederates are just better at maneuvering than the Union are. They just are.
Or at least the Union was just so much worse.
Well, the Union had a problem with putting clowns in command. That's not a problem that the Confederate government was immune to. There are examples on the Confederate side too, and I think Hooker was a pretty decent corps commander personally, and he's in this scenario. H-Tuna, suggested retail on this is like $160 or $180. It's an expensive package. However, that does I will say the caveat is that there is a gigantic amount of content in this package, and you can always go to NWS, search for NWS online, and buy it from him for something like 40% off.
Yeah, there's like 4 games in this thing. I bought this thing last year.
Yeah, there's 3 modules in this, and it includes the counters for Long Roads to Gettysburg, which you could download the rules online, and it basically puts the whole thing together. So you're playing this enormous campaign game. All right, so Brent, you're going to do an activation, I presume.
Yes, I am going to do an activation.
With whom?
Yeah, exactly. With whom? Holy moly. Okay, so there's nothing preventing him from activating Reno next turn. Right?
That is correct. His next turn. That is absolutely correct.
And he has... Yeah, so the issue is, do you want to block in the pass or behind the pass? Because...
Well, you want to block in the pass because, I mean, you got to do what you got. You can do what you can do. But you want to block, you want to occupy the pass because you get that +2. That's significant, right? That turned a 3-to-1 attack in the previous mountain pass into a big loss on the Union side. Right. I mean, if you have to defend the mouth of the pass on the other side, then, that's a unfortunate if you have to be in that position. Roads can get to the pass in 1 turn.
Yeah, that's my thinking. I think I need to do that.
Okay. So roll a d6, and it's going to be a d6 plus 1 movement point for Rhodes. So he's going to get 6 movement points.
Okay. And he needs 4?
So if you move him 1, 2, 3, 4, he can occupy that hex that says Hamburg Pass, but maybe you want to put him in 3308 instead.
Right, but then he can get attacked from... Okay, so if you're in the mountains, you don't have to follow the road to attack?
No, you absolutely do.
Okay, so if he's in 3207, there's only 1 hex that can attack him, right?
That's true, but it's difficult. Remember what I said about attacking with more than 1 unit, let alone from more than 1 hex? It requires an assault. And attacking from more than 1 hex requires a grand assault. A grand assault requires an army leader. There are no army leaders present in this scenario.
Okay, all right. Then I will do that. I will move him to there.
Okay, and I figure you're probably, on your next activation, you're probably going to move somebody into that Hamburg Pass hex too, right? I don't think you're done right there. All right,
correct.
So that's your activation. So both of you now again roll 1d6. That is a Union initiative. So Finn, it is your initiative.
Okay. So I can activate Reno again?
Yes, absolutely.
Okay.
And there's no terrain effects on command range, right?
There is not. Okay. There is in the combats, and there is in movement too, but generally, like I said, you want to move on the roads. In almost all cases, you want to move on the roads.
But D.H. Hill can give command on the other side of the mountains.
D.H. Hill's just a unit here. He's not a leader.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah,
So he's not commanding anybody.
right.
But no, it's
Or
just
whatever.
the command range is just 3 hexes.
But if he was, yeah, he could command someone on the other side of the mountain.
Yes.
Yeah. Okay.
Okay, so now question. So for a regular assault, so that's multiple units in 1 hex.
Correct. And you need a
When-
leader to do it. And
Okay.
and he has to roll to do it. So he might and you take the fatigue whether he succeeds or not. So essentially to do an assault, you have to position the units,
Yes.
and then as a separate activation, you have to then do the assault.
Okay. Interesting.
So he could move his units into Jerusalem Church, and then next activation do his assault.
That's
on Rhodes.
correct. Or next, he could try in his next
Try.
activation.
Well,
Now,
yeah,
another thing that I'll
attempt.
point out is you've got 4 fatigue levels. You've got fatigue level 1, 2, 3, and 4. Okay, you have to start being concerned when you start to hit fatigue level 3, because then it has become an extended march for the Union. Confederates don't get extended march until Fat 4, as long as they're not disorganized. If they're disorganized, it's a different number. And that's where you would have to roll, and you could potentially suffer a point of attrition.
So this module, the other side's counters are not protected from you in any way, right? You can do anything to them. It's like they're not locked to just them. Move, change values, any of that stuff. You know what I mean?
That might be true. I'm not sure.
Because I get a menu, like I can right click on his Wilcox and I get the full menu. I'm not obviously
Okay.
going to try to do anything. I'm just wondering if would it actually allow me to change his
It might,
power.
and some modules do. That's something that varies by module.
Right. Okay.
Some modules will lock you out of the opposing side's modules. Some modules will hide the opposing side's pieces from you. There is a fog of war mechanism in this series that it uses off-map displays and like force markers. In a scenario like this, it's not worth playing with, and that's not a thing that you do in an introductory scenario anyway. But if you're doing like a longer campaign, then I think you do something you do want to play with. Okay, hold on right there. So
Yeah.
you activated Reno.
Yes.
Who is Reno activating?
First Wilcox.
Okay.
And what is
And then Sturgis is under him. And then he's
Sturgis
within
and
range
then
of Rodman.
Yes.
Okay, so you're going to activate all 3?
Yes.
Okay, roll a d6.
Oh, that's right.
Okay, so you have 2 movement points for each one.
Yes.
Did you move Wilcox already?
Yes.
Okay, so Wilcox will then
moved-
go to Fat 2.
He moved. He moved. Yeah. He moved only.
Okay.
Oh, you changed it.
I'm going to put I'll take care of the fatigue and the manpower losses. All right. So I just gave fatigue to all 3 units that you've activated. And whether you move them or not. All right. So you had 2 movement points. You actually can't get there. That's kind of part of the problem.
Oh,
And
yeah, because
indeed,
he's got one
coordinating
extra, right?
these things is a big challenge in this game. So he moves 1, right? Right where you are, you've spent 1. And it would cost 2 to move into Jerusalem Church, but because Wilcox is already there, it costs an extra 1. So it costs 2, which would bring you to 3 movement points.
Right. Okay. And then Rodman will.
And it is a never-ending source of frustration to need 3 movement points and roll 2. Well, that's again though that reflects real command challenges in the period. Is you can't get the guys there when they're needed there exactly, and then coordinating them once they're there. Those are the things that this system models.
Well, it's like all these little roads that we're quote traveling on. They wouldn't have known about half of them, and they'd be farmers' tracks and.
Well, it's potentially true too. I mean, this is Maryland, so this is the north,
Yeah.
right? North of the river here, is north. But and they have, Union has scouts and Pinkertons and stuff like that, and the Confederates have better scouts. So, and it is just across the river from Virginia too. All right, so I believe you've moved everybody. So the next thing we're going to do is roll for initiative again. So both of you roll a d6. That is a tie. Confederates win ties.
All right. Yes. Longstreet.
All right.
Activation and Hood and Evans.
Okay, so Longstreet is going to activate, and he's going to activate all 3 guys under him. So roll a d6 plus 2.
Oh.
8. So each guy, and you'll handle them one at a time, right? Which can be important. It's not particularly important here, if there's like an attack in there somewhere. So you're going to get 8 movement points with each of those units, and Longstreet will move with Dr. Jones.
Right.
There is a phase afterwards where you can move Longstreet around to any of his other subordinates.
In the same hex or within range?
Anywhere, actually.
Oh, on the whole map, really?
Yeah. Well, because Longstreet's just a guy on a horse, so he can go where he wants.
All right, so on the road through all of this terrain, it's just 1?
Correct.
Okay.
Now that creek, that's Antietam Creek, by the way. You would be crossing it at those fords that are marked.
Right.
Those do not cost extra movement points, however.
Okay. 2, 3. So I can get to Smoketown by my calculations.
I believe you could get Dr. Jones to Smoketown, yeah.
Yeah.
And Dr. Jones is a huge unit here, too, by the way.
Yeah, he's a 10. Yeah, that sounds like a plan to me. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. All right. Kabam.
Okay. And then he's done, and we'll mark him. And technically, like I said, we mark fatigue first. So I'll mark all 3. So go ahead and move the other 2, one at a time.
Okay. Okay, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Ooh. Okay. All right. 3, 4, 5.
Looks like mine got out of sync. Where's the sync button here?
If you click on my name in the current game up in the upper right, you should have a synchronize option.
Gotcha.
It does seem a little laggy. I blame the internet.
It's always the internet.
Yeah, pretty much.
2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. All right, so Hood's going to go here. I believe that's 8.
That sounds logical.
6, 7, 8. And then I'm just going to stack Evans right behind him.
Okay.
Done.
All right. Roll initiative, both of you.
4.
That is a Union initiative. Now, Finn, if you activate Reno again, which you can, and I think you're going to, then you will be moving them to fatigue 3, which means that you'll be making extended march rolls for them. Just so you know.
Okay.
So what's the 4th color? Is it like green, yellow, orange, red, or?
Yeah, pretty much. It's green, yellow, orange, red.
Okay.
Yeah, might as well activate Reno.
I think you should activate Ricketts.
Okay, so we activate Reno, so I automatically give... So he's going to be activating Rodman, Sturgis, and Wilcox.
Okay.
So they all get a fatigue break right now, right?
Yes, correct. I'll take care of it.
Oh, okay. I gave Wilcox one. Okay.
Okay, so they're all fatigued. So go ahead and move them in whatever order. Oh, let me ask.
Got to roll the 6. Huh?
If you're... Well, now you would roll.
Now I'd roll.
Well, hold on. Before you roll, do you want to activate Wilcox here, or do you want to position yourself for an assault, which includes Wilcox later? Are you actually going to move Wilcox? Maybe you're not.
No, yeah, that's right. So I don't actually activate Wilcox, and then he goes back. He's
Okay.
still Fat 1, right?
Yeah,
Or 2.
exactly.
That's how you got to think about this. Okay. So, yes, we will activate Sturgis and Rodman.
Okay, so now roll a d6 and add 1. So you have 6 movement points with each.
Interesting. Okay, so Reno and Sturgis can go, what is that, 2 into there?
It would cost 2, yes.
And then, so for Rodman, 1, 2, and then that would be 3, 4 for Rodman to get in there too?
It would cost 2 extra for Rodman to get in there, yes.
So he can't, so we will do that.
Okay. And we're going to make sure that Reno himself is on top.
Yeah.
All right. And that's it? You don't want to try a march attack in there or anything like that?
Okay, so I could go back and march attack with...
You could. Well, you could, but if you want to assault, then maybe you don't want to, because the march attack is going to always cost you... Well, it's probably going to cost you a fatigue, at least a fatigue, and it might knock an entire unit out. So if you're shooting for an assault, then you probably don't want to march attack here. You probably want to just sit and do the assault, and then maybe roll Hooker up to Turner's Gap to try and pound his way through there.
Yeah. Okay, no, that's fine.
All right, now roll initiative then. That is a Union initiative.
That's not good, is it?
Well, you got a big division on the other side of Hamburg Pass there, so we'll see what happens.
Right, but that would have
The
been
thing
better.
is, I'm gonna
road.
if I exhaust myself kicking you out, it ain't gonna matter when Longstreet rolls right back in there. But do I do that now? I guess. Or do I roll Hooker up? So after I, is there a combat effect or can I get something out of combat that will let me advance?
Yes.
Or would that never happen?
Yes. No. There's the advance after combat is a result that comes up on the table.
Okay, so I could end up in that mountain.
Yes.
All right, then let's assault. Let's do it.
All right. So here's how you're going to do this. You're going to say Reno is going to activate, and he's going to activate all 3 units subordinate to him who all happen to be in that hex. Okay? They're all going to increase fatigue at this time. Okay? Now, you'll notice that puts Rodman and Sturgis at 4 and the other guy, Wilcox, at 3. Okay? You're going to select a target, which is obvious. You're going to... This is where you would cavalry retreat if there was a cavalry retreat. Now you're going to roll to see if the assault happens. So roll a d6.
What am I rolling against?
You're rolling against your command value, which is 6. Did you roll a 6?
Yes.
He did.
The assault ends. It does not go off.
Great. Okay.
You have to be under.
You have to be less... Well, so what happens is you subtract the number you rolled from the leader's command value, which is 6. So let's say he rolls a 2. You subtract 2 from 6, and then you can activate up to 4 units for the assault. But if you roll a 6, then you're subtracting 6 from your 6, and you can activate 0.
0. Okay.
So... And that's that. I mean, you can't. The 2 of those units are at 4 now, and they're you cannot even try an assault again. You can, but you would just be using 1 unit. There is a bonus to assault. That's a +1 bonus because it's an assault and not just an attack on the march. So you could
Gotcha.
still do it with Wilcox, but it's less attractive now.
Sure.
All right, so we roll initiative. Union initiative.
Well, that's about the only thing I got left. So
You know, it would be really nice if they did a better job, I think, of something with the die rolls, right? Like a separator or something between so that you're not trying to figure out.
Oh, on Vassal? Yeah, I completely agree.
Yeah,
that is something that I've seen happen a lot, actually. It's hard to keep track of. You do get used to it, but it's something that you do have to keep track of.
But if you're not like paying attention, if you're looking at something else when someone rolls and it's like his Finley Boyd 3 times in a row, you're trying to remember,
Yeah.
was it 2 or
which
3?
one was which?
And it's all
Yeah.
they're all 6s.
I agree. I
Yeah.
agree. So this is one turn is 1 day.
It
Is
is.
that what it is?
Correct.
Okay. So it's like we force marched from Frederick to,
And they're 1 mile
How about-
hexes.
yeah, I was going to say that's about 8 or 9 miles.
Yeah.
Because I've driven that. Okay. So I will activate Hooker, and that will mean I'm activating Meade, Hatch, and Ricketts.
Okay. Okay. There's their fatigue. So go ahead and roll a
now-
d6 and add 1 for a leader activation. Okay. So that's
I am
2
not,
points.
I'm not making for a very good demo game here. Okay.
Actually, we've gotten a lot of demo stuff in.
One,
In that we got to see an attempted assault at least. We got to see at least 1 combat.
2. Is Rhodes in a town? Is Rhodes still 1?
Yes, it is.
1, 2. Okay.
Roll initiative.
So in a 1-turn game,
Mm-hmm.
right, there's no way to get back fatigue.
That is correct. There is a recovery phase that takes place at the end of the turn.
The turn, right?
But because there is no turn 2 in this particular scenario, it's irrelevant.
Yeah.
And there's really no reason for me to attack anything. If he's fully fatigued, he's not going to do anything. And as on the defensive, and I hold the victory point locations,
I pretty much
just sit
agree.
here.
I mean, maybe you put something else in that in Turner's Gap, but yeah, pretty much. That's
There's no
pretty
reason
much
to.
true.
I mean, the rest of this game is going to be me bashing my head against Colquitt at Fox's Gap.
Yes.
Really. Brant, you need to roll.
Yep,
initiative.
got it. Well, no, actually, I don't. If you keep rolling 6s,
Well, if you get a 6, then it doesn't matter. You go.
right? My 16% chance.
Okay.
That's true.
All right. So same thing. Hooker will activate, and he will activate Meade, Hatch, and Ricketts.
Okay, so roll a d6 plus 2. Plus 1. Okay, so that's 6
It's a little
points.
better. Yes. So Hooker will go 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. And Hatch will follow behind him. And Ricketts behind him. And there we go.
Okay.
And there's a chance of not recovering fatigue at the end of the turn.
No, it's an automatic process that you'll recover. It's more complicated than I'm going to make it sound because there's a specific sequence of events that you have to do. But if you basically recover 3 levels of fatigue at the end of the day.
Okay.
If you were at higher than fatigue 2, then you become exhausted, which affects your ability to move the following day until you become unexhausted. So nobody's going to get exhausted in this scenario because that happens during the recovery phase.
Right.
So the real teeth of this game, the system, is like, how far do I push my guys
Yes.
today? Because tomorrow I'm going to need them.
Yes, that's exactly correct. In a 1-turn game, there's no reason not to push everybody to Fat 4.
You're just going to burn everybody out.
Yeah, exactly. Which is exactly what's going to happen here. But In a multi-turn game, then you have to be aware of, hey, I have to be careful taking my guys to fatigue 3, right?
Yeah. Okay. So we roll for initiative again?
Yep. That is a Confederate initiative.
Yep. Okay. So realistically, for the purposes of this scenario, there's really not much need to move Longstreet and Company anymore, right?
I mean, move down to Boonesboro and just block the door even
So
more,
you
right?
can occupy... There's a couple of things you might want to do. You can occupy the hexes, the victory hexes, like Boonesboro and Roarsville. Also, be aware of Fox's Gap, which is currently only guarded by that 5th Virginia Cavalry.
Right.
Now, him just forcing the gap is not quite enough. He's got to get through the gap and get to either Burnsboro or Roarsville, and that will take another activation. And Hooker's guys are all at 2 activations already.
My attack would have to go really well, I think.
Well, if you attack with 10 infantry against 1 cavalry, that's a 10-1, right? That's a +9 on the table.
That's true.
Or he could choose to cavalry retreat, but he can't cavalry retreat into hexes that are occupied just because they're not in range, and then that clears the gap for you, right?
Either way, yeah.
Yeah. So he's got to either vacate that gap or stay and fight it out with that cavalry, and it would be an extremely favorable if you got who's under Hooker here?
Meade. He's got
Okay,
9.
so Meade's got 9 manpower. 9-1 is a +8 on the table right there. Plus 5th Virginia generic leader versus Meade's 2. That's another +1, so that's +9. -2, you figure, for the terrain. So +7. That's a really good attack. So on a Confederate initiative, maybe you want to put somebody in Fox's Gap.
Right. But, okay.
It is your turn now.
Yep. So what
And Longstreet's a ways. Well, yeah, but if you move D.H. Hill, you're leaving another gap open.
Yeah, exactly. Right. So it's really Garland. If I was to put somebody this turn into Fox's Gap without
It would
having
have to be Garland.
Yeah, a huge roll. Because I have to roll for points now, right?
You have
For
to
movement
roll
point?
for. You do, yeah.
For
So
movement.
bear in mind that Garland and Colquitt are and Rhodes are part of Longstreet's division. So you can act it. Just bear that in mind. And I think D.H. Hill is considered part of Longstreet as well. So Longstreet can activate everybody
Within his
range. Yeah.
But they are all within his range now, right?
No, D.H. Hill is, but Garland and Colquitt are not.
Oh, yeah. I was looking at the wrong number. It's 4. Garland and D.H. Hill are. Colquitt's not, but Colquitt's not going anywhere. Right. Okay. And so you choose who you want to activate before you roll for the points?
Correct. That's correct.
Yeah. Okay. All right. Well, I'll activate Longstreet.
Okay. So we activate Longstreet. Now, who is Longstreet activating?
Longstreet's going to activate everybody other than Rhodes. He's not going to activate Rhodes. And he is...
Yes to D.H. Hill?
He's not activating... Well, actually, so would it make sense to put him in 3209? Or does it really matter?
I say it doesn't particularly matter. What could
It's the
potentially
same.
matter is if you wanted to put another unit behind him in 3110, where Hill
Right.
is right now, then it might make a difference. But I don't know that that's going to be valuable in this scenario.
Right.
Andrew, this is Roads to Gettysburg 2, part of the... this is part of Roads to Gettysburg 2. The actual module is Here Come the Rebels 2, however. So, I don't see any reason to move Hill. I'd keep Hill where he is.
Yeah, that's what I'm thinking.
If you need to move him, if you decide to move him at some point, you can activate him by himself, and it doesn't matter what you roll because you're only going to move him 1 hex anyway.
Right. Okay, so Evans, Hood, Longstreet, Jones, and Garland.
Garland is out of range.
Garland? I thought it was 4.
It's 3.
It's 3 for everybody.
Command range is 3 hexes.
Oh, what's the red number again?
That's the tactical value.
Okay. So I got a choice then. If I want to plug Fox's Gap this turn, the only person who can do it is either Garland or D.H. Hill.
Correct.
So if I do Longstreet, I can't do Garland. But it could be okay. There's probably no way to backstop D.H. Hill if I move him this turn then, right? 1, 2, 3, 4, because of the road network.
Yeah, probably not.
Yeah.
Funny that they have the Washington Monument actually on here.
Well, they have a brick schoolhouse.
All the little weird landmarks are all on here. In fact, if you look, you'll see the Dunker Church is on here, the Sunken Road, because we're right by Antietam.
Antietam, right.
You can see the Dunker Church, the Sunken Road, the Middle Bridge, Burnside's Bridge, all that stuff. It's all here.
The Washington Monument's hilarious because if you go read the story about it, it's like these people just woke up one morning and go like, you know what, we should make a monument to Washington. Yeah, let's go up on the hill and do that. Like,
well, that's kind of like all of them, isn't it?
From Boonesboro. No, but I mean literally, like, you doing anything today? No, let's go make a monument to Washington. It was like 1805 or something. It was hilarious.
Okay, no. So check what I said. I'm just going to activate Garland.
All right, then hold on. All right, so we'll fatigue Garland then. Okay, and then now go ahead and roll.
But it's not going to matter, right? Because
well, no, but go ahead and roll. So you move 2. So if he's just moving 1 hex south, then it doesn't actually matter.
Right.
Can
Okay.
you move 1 hex south? Is there a road down there?
Yes, there is. It's a little hard to see.
It's right here, right? It's
Yeah.
between T and U.
Yeah, pretty much.
Oh, I see it. Oh,
It joins
wow.
right there. You
Wow.
probably can't even see my cursor, can you?
No, I don't see
I
it.
probably should. Yeah, can't you see it right where my cursor's pointing? It's not like the little hand.
Oh, I see. I see it. Yeah, that little thing that goes right through the U. Interesting.
Okay, so I'm done, right?
Yep, roll initiative.
Oh, man, Finley.
All right, Union initiative.
Yeah, I keep getting initiative and then not being able to do anything with it.
Well, I've pretty much hung my cab out to dry.
Which actually probably describes a lot of the Civil War.
They can still cavalry retreat now and know that there's a unit behind them
True, yeah.
to guard that gap.
Oh, but they could. Does it have to be farther away when they retreat?
They have to go. Pretty much you go wherever you want, but as long as you're not going through Zox, it doesn't really matter. If your retreat is cut off by Zox, then it's a problem.
Right, but if Hooker moved into Mincer Sawhill, let's say, and then initiated a combat, I could retreat, but I could not retreat into 3213, right?
3213. No, you totally could.
Well, but that's
but you're 4 to 6 hexes away, right? So
You have to go a minimum of 4, you said?
It's 4 to 6 hexes, yeah.
2, 3, 4. So you can go down by Quebec, like 1, 2, 3.
Well, you mean
Is
in
there
zone
any-
within
You've
the
got
zone of
two,
control?
the other thing is you have two opportunities. Well, actually, you don't. Cox is already there. So if Cox was to have moved into, let's say Hooker with Meade under him, moves into that hex that's occupied by Cox, okay? An infantry unit has become adjacent to your cavalry unit. You can do a cavalry retreat at that time. The other opportunity you have is if he says, I'm going to attack that cavalry unit, then as part of the combat procedure, you can cavalry retreat again. You can't do that if he's got cavalry, but if he doesn't have cavalry, then you can.
When you say
Right.
you mean cavalry in the hex with me at the same time?
Yeah.
I see. So if I have cavalry, it offsets his ability to
Yeah,
do the strategic retreat.
exactly. And cavalry has to fight other cavalry.
But
Interesting.
Hooker and Meade, right?
Mm-hmm.
They move into Mincer Sawmill.
Uh-huh.
I can retreat,
Yes.
but it can't be through a zone of control.
So if in that case, then he would be throwing a Zoc into 3213, and you would need to retreat through Garland's hex.
Okay.
And there is a road connecting those.
Yeah. So I thought earlier there was a reason I couldn't go through another unit on retreat. That's not the case?
You can go through another unit on retreat.
Okay.
Okay, so let's. I'm activating Hooker,
Okay. And Hooker's
He's
activating who?
Meade, Hatch, and Ricketts.
Okay, so let's fatigue them. All right. So they're fatigued. So go ahead and go them in whatever order you want. Roll the dice first. So you got a D6 plus 1. Wow. Okay.
Seriously?
Balls
See, I
on
told you.
toast.
This is
Okay,
like the
well-
longest day.
Hooker will spend his 2 to go up here with Meade.
Okay.
Well,
5th
no,
Virginia
wait,
ki-
that doesn't even make sense anymore. Sorry, what about the 5th Virginia?
Well, if
Well,
you
you would
move
have to-
into that hex, then 5th Virginia Cavalry can elect to retreat.
Right.
And furthermore, he can start his cavalry retreat in 3213 if you move into Cox's hex.
So, and if these fat level 2 are.
There's no supply in this, though, right?
There is in the campaigns,
Okay, but not like in this scenario or whatever.
not in the shorter scenarios.
Okay.
So
I should say there are scenarios and campaigns, then there's basic rules and advanced rules. The campaigns have the advanced rules, but there are also just scenarios that have the advanced rules. They tend to be longer. The supply rules are part of the advanced rules.
Okay. So in the
Hooker,
basic rules, there's no. I mean, surrounding somebody doesn't really do much.
It does if you fight them.
Okay.
There's a Zoc bonus that so attacking somebody who is locked in by zones of control gives you a bonus to the combat roll.
Okay.
A progressive bonus to the combat roll. So if you surround them on 3 sides, then you'll get a bonus to the combat roll. And if you surround them on all sides with either units or Zocs, then you will get a plus. What's the bonus? It's like a plus 5 or something like that. It's a big bonus.
wow.
Plus 4.
So there's
It's
no
plus 4.
attrition, though, right?
What's that?
There'd be no turn attrition.
So here's how the attrition works. Hooker just he just marched on Fat 3. So Finn, roll 1d6 for Hooker. For Hooker and Meade, I should say. All right. You didn't roll a 6, and that's what you need in this particular case. If you had rolled a 6, you would disorganize and take one manpower loss. So
That's the attrition?
there is
Okay.
attrition, but it only comes up on extended marches. And extended marches, you have to do more with extended marches if you're exhausted. So if you, and it's hard to explain this without showing it to you over the course of multiple turns. So let's say you've got this, Cox goes to Fat 4. Okay, so at the end of the turn in the recovery phase, he's going to lose 3 fatigue levels. So he's going to go down to fatigue 1. But because he was not at fatigue 1 or 2 already, he is going to be exhausted, which means that he now has to make a extended march roll to go to fatigue 3. Yeah.
So every day you spend over like fatigue 2.
So in a multi-day scenario, you want to take care to go over fatigue 2. Because if you're at fatigue, if you're not exhausted and you're at fatigue 1 or 2, then you'll just be recovered at the beginning of the next day, right? And you'll be fine and ready to go again. If, however, you're at fatigue 3 or 4, then you'll lose 3 fatigue levels, but you'll become exhausted, which means you shift one number down on the extended march table, which makes you more vulnerable to attrition if you have to then do a bunch of marching on the following day.
Okay, so we moved Hooker and Meade in, and I am going to march...
Okay, one second. You've spent 1 to move him there. 5th Virginia Cavalry, does it want a cavalry retreat?
Yes.
Okay, so roll a d6.
Me or Brant? Okay.
Brant. Okay, so Meade is going to lose 1 movement point. It's that divided by 2 rounded down. So Meade is done. What's going to happen is 5th Virginia Cavalry is going to disorganize and retreat 4 to 6 hexes. Okay. And yes, you do not particularly need to follow the roads on retreats. All right, now go ahead and move Hatch and or Ricketts, however you like. Although they don't have a ton of flexibility, do they?
That's what they can do. Actually, Ricketts can go into there. So there you go.
He can. Actually, no, he can't. Yeah, he can. He can. Or he could go down here. But putting him here is probably not a terrible idea.
Yeah.
All right, so that's Hooker. So go ahead and roll initiative. You are the most amazing Union initiative roller I have seen play this game, actually. So it is a Union initiative.
And the worst overall commander. So
well, you're not you're getting the breaks on the initiative rolls and not so much on the movement rolls. But that's the reality. I mean, the Confederate player will do that too, right?
Yeah,
they'll say, "Oh crap, I got to get to this hex this turn or next activation or whatever," and they'll roll 1s and 2s for movement and they'll be hosed. So and that again reflects the fact that sometimes you cannot get, as a commander, you could not get the units where you needed them to be at the time you needed.
No, totally. All right, so Hooker will go again.
All right.
And we will do Meade, Hatch, and Ricketts.
D6 plus 1.
Hey, finally.
Okay, so that's 7 points. Let me get the fatigue. All right, and they're all done, but they get to go. So you can do whatever you like with your
this is
7 movement points.
Our grand going out party here. So March attacks are per unit, correct?
Correct.
Yeah. Okay. So let's do that first. Okay. So we're gonna take Hatch into here. Oh no. How do I not select all of them? Okay. How do I only select one of these units?
Double click on the stack And it'll expand the stack a little bit and let you click on just one.
Gotcha. Okay. So this will be 2 to get in here, I believe, right? 1 and then 1 for the extra unit.
Yes.
Okay, so I've got 5 left, and so I will prepare march.
Okay, so
Attack.
you're going to do a prepared attack with your 4 points, is what it costs on Colquitt. All right.
Yes.
Now, manpower difference is 5 to 1, so you're going to be at +4. Artillery is irrelevant, and the tactical value of the leaders is equal. So but there's a defender +2, but it works out as a -2 for the mountains. So the net roll is a +2. So both of you roll a d6. Okay, so we have 6 -3 for 3 +2 for 5. So we look at the combat chart.
What was the +2? What was the +2 from?
The +2's from the net combat modifier. So combat modifiers for the roll are -2 for the mountain and +4 for the manpower advantage that you have. So it's a +2.
Gotcha.
Net +2.
Gotcha.
And then we subtract his roll, which is 3. So we have a net of 5. So you have 10 points. And on a 5, you're going to get a big E, little a. Okay? What the big E means is that they're done, but the A means that you can advance after combat.
Oh, nice.
Colquitt, on the other hand, has a 1/2 to 3 points, and he's going to take a 1 big D, big R. So here's what's going to happen to Colquitt. He's going to lose a manpower. I'm noting that. Just a second. Okay. He is going to disorganize. He is going to lose 3 fatigue levels. And he's going to retreat 2 to 4 hexes. I'll let you do that, Brant.
Okay.
And then Hatch, you're not required to advance, but you want to advance. Oh,
Right.
we forgot something. Hold on. There's a +1 for a prepared attack.
Okay. So what does that make it a 6?
For his result that doesn't matter, but for you that means you still have 1 movement point left
Oh, interesting.
because
So
it's
I
no
can-
longer an end action result. It's just an A.
Okay. So I could move into
Ziddlestown.
Ziddlestown. I might as well do that. Okay.
Okay.
And now I can go on to Cox then?
And Cox is done. You Ricketts or Meade.
Or, I mean, sorry, Ricketts. Yeah, Ricketts.
Yeah.
Or Meade. So, well, let's see. Well, that's interesting. So those two, that's the big. Okay, so Hooker and Meade will go. And go 1, 2. And stay there.
Okay, so hold on. If
Yeah,
you move
sorry.
here, for that's 1, but you're in a
Yes.
Zoc, so you actually have to stop there.
Oh, okay.
So you probably want to move through Cox, and so you'll be at 3.
That's fine. I'm not attacking her or anything like that anyway, so it doesn't matter.
Okay.
Okay, cool. And then Ricketts with his 7 could go and join Hooker, right? 1, 2, 3, 4.
He could join Hatch and have 1 movement left for a hasty attack on Colquitt.
That's interesting.
At 18 to
So-
1.
A friendly unit disallows a zone of control.
For retreat purposes?
No. So for like Ricketts, right? So Ricketts goes through...
Oh, I see what you're saying. Yes, that's for movement purposes, yeah.
Okay.
Do I want a hasty attack? I guess I might as well. Okay, let's do it.
All right, so it's going to be a hasty attack, which is going to be a -1. But you're at 18 to 1, which gives you the maximum manpower bonus of plus 13. And the tactical value is even. However, in this case, it is in clear terrain, and you have a total of +1 artillery, which is an additional -2, because you don't have sufficient artillery superiority to make the attack. However, that said, you're at -3, so you're at +10. So that's like a who cares penalty at that point. So go ahead, both of you roll a d6. Okay, so the net is -2 plus 10 is +8, which is going to be an advance for the attacker and a 2 DR for Colquitt. So Colquitt's going to be just toast. Okay, and then Ricketts may advance.
He will not.
Okay, so you're basically done then.
Yep.
You're pretty much done. All right, roll initiative.
Yep. I got that one cavalry unit, I guess.
That's a Confederate initiative. Does the Confederate player want to do anything? I'm going to tell you what the victory points look like right now.
Yeah.
Zittlestown and the Mountain House is a +7 Union victory, which is a Union substantive victory right now.
That doesn't sound good.
Now, the other thing is that the Union is essentially spent at this point.
Right.
They have a total of 2 units that could still activate. One is that 1 point of cavalry. And for the record, cavalry in this game system are almost never more than 3 strength points. And usually it's 1 or 2. Wilcox still has an activation left. So all the Confederate side can really do here is...
Bum rush Zittlestown, right?
Yeah, potentially with Hood's really big. It's not Hood. It's D.R. Jones' really big division. But even then, Zittlestown's got 19 points of Union infantry in it in the mountains. I don't believe that's a salvageable situation for the Confederate player at this time.
Yeah.
Although this is pretty funny though, because I'm pretty sure Fox's Gap fell at about 6:30 or 7 p.m. that night, just like this happened.
Something like that, yeah. They have to pound their way through it. Yeah,
it was.
I mean, there was
a
lot of Union. The Union won more initiatives than I expect them to win, like by a lot. But then I usually play the Union, so I count on losing the initiative more than I win it, regardless.
Yeah, but then I kept rolling one on the on the movement points.
That does hurt, but chances are, well, that is a potential reason why not to do leader activations, right? Because when you do the leader activation, then you're committing that entire corps to whatever you rolled, and if you rolled a 1, well, then it's that's unfortunate. You've just split an entire activation, and in a 1-turn game, you can't recover from that, right?
Yeah, it's a good point. Yeah.
So
it's like you're better off letting the smaller units run on their own initiative and
yeah.
More dice rolls.
For the Confederate, it's a little easier choice to make because they get a plus on a leader activation. They'll get a +2 to the roll, right? So that insulates them from getting a really terrible roll. But you rolled at least 2 leader activations where you rolled a 1 on the die, and that is going to happen in this game.
Yeah.
But I really love how it accurately models the command challenges of, hey, tell Hooker to get his corps up here, right?
And
hey, why are they not here yet?
Yeah, however long it takes Hooker to do that, it's like, well, the guy with the message got stuck 5 miles down the road or whatever.
Yeah.
So how does this differ from the Great Battles of the Shenandoah?
Great Battles of the Shenandoah. Oh, you mean
Great
do you mean that like Death Valley, the battles from the Shenandoah?
Death Valley, exactly.
That is a regimental level tactical game. I also really like that series, by the way, Great Battles of the American Civil War. This is a division and brigade level operational game. They are extremely different games. They are modeling different things.
So the combat and everything else is different?
Oh, yeah, vastly.
Okay.
It's like guys are what's the turn, like it's like 20-minute turn, or is it 20 or half
it's
hour
1 hour
turns?
turns, but there are impulses in the turns based on the chit pulls. So it's sort of 15-minute turns based on 15 minutes per chit, but it's 1 hour per turn. But you may not get four chits in a turn.
I did like reading the story how what's his face? Who's the designer? Joe
Belkowski was the original designer of this system.
How he went up to the mountain outside Cedar Mountain there and just looked down, and it's like it just kind of came to him. It's like, oh, that's the real problem, isn't it?
Yeah.
Getting large guys to like move around this place where you want them, when you want them.
Yeah.
That's the key.
And one of the complaints that people have about this series is that it's hard to get the big battles to happen. Well, yeah, that's the whole point. It's the challenge is to get that big decisive battle to happen when you want it on ground that is favorable to you. That is the challenge. That's the whole point of the system.
And even then, it might not work out the way you think. And then you got to figure out what to do after that.
Exactly. And especially if you're playing with Fog of War, this unit right here might be just a force marker, and you don't know what's in it. It could be Longstreet with 10 manpower, or it could be one cavalry unit. You can kind of tell if it moves 10 hexes every turn that's cavalry, but but if not, you don't know, right? And there's reasons you could. So one of the other things you can do is I can say, hey, I'm going to split Evans here, and I'm going to create a sub-command from him, and I'll give it that sub-command 1 manpower. And then you can have another manpower running around that's subordinate to Longstreet, for example.
So what, if anything, did I do wrong?
I'm not sure. You rolled bad dice was the problem.
Yeah.
You didn't roll enough sixes for initiative. I probably would have... I would have done exactly what you did in that initial opportunity for cavalry retreat out of 3212. I would have stayed where he was because you need somebody in that hex until you can get somebody else up there.
Right.
I think you just didn't get Longstreet down there fast enough is what it came down to. Longstreet needed at least 1 and maybe 2 more activations to do it. And you rolled good movement on the 1 activation you got, but Longstreet only activated once.
Which again, by the way, that's exactly what happened.
Yeah.
Longstreet didn't get there till like 8:30, 9 o'clock that night. And by then, the DHL's guys and some of those other guys, they had already run away. Mm-hmm. So he had to go over like through Burnsboro and I think Keedysville and then go start rounding people up and get them to Sharpsburg to reform.
Mm-hmm.
That's exactly what happened.
Yeah, it's a really brilliant game system that I think accurately models the history. It produces historical results. It gives you it makes you make historical decisions.
Decisions, yeah. You have to be in the same mindset that they were. Mm-hmm. Which is a key.
And it's a great experience, too, when you're playing, like a 15-turn, even if it's not a campaign per se, but if it's like a 10 or 15-turn scenario where you really have room to maneuver and room to breathe. The Gettysburg scenarios are particularly good at this, where you could kind of, choose your pace of advance, but bear in mind that the other guy gets to, you might find that you moved too slow, and the other guy
on the
got
other
to
side of
the,
the mountain.
yeah.
Yeah, it's a race up the mountainsides.
Campaigns, especially that were notable for the use of maneuver, like the Jackson's Valley campaign or the Virginia Peninsula campaign in onto Richmond. Those are especially good for being modeled in this system.
That's what I'd really like. I hope they redo those because I would love to.
Well, I will
what
tell
that
you.
is like.
So the next game in the series that will be coming is Hood Strikes North, which I think that's what it's called.
Which I pre-ordered.
Okay, yeah, me too. I actually pre-ordered 2 of them, but so that's Hood's Nashville campaign in 1864, and that's going to be a 1-map, relatively small game. The next thing
Is that MMP?
yes, and that's available for pre-order on their site right now. The next thing in the pipeline is what is going to be called On to Richmond 2, which, like Roads to Gettysburg 2, will contain 3 modules. It will contain On to Richmond 2, Grant Takes Command 2, which is Grant's Overland campaign with the Battle of the Wilderness and all that, which is another really good one. And it will contain a new module on the campaign for Petersburg. And then after that, I think the next thing, I think it's less certain, but the next thing after that is likely to be a Valley Campaigns thing where it'll have both Jackson's 1862 Shenandoah Valley campaign and Sheridan's 1864 Shenandoah Valley campaign.
Sure. Yeah. So that on the Richmond package, that sounds amazing.
Yeah, that's going to be it's going to be another big, probably expensive package like Roads to Gettysburg 2, but it will contain an enormous quantity of content. And I'll buy, personally. Like I said, this is maybe my favorite war game series. So I really love it. I think it's really cool. If you have the chance to go to if there was to be any conventions in January or February, Multi-Man's Winter Offensive. Last year they had about 60 people playing Great Campaigns of the American Civil War there. In several big campaigns, plus they had some playtest games of Hood Strikes North and a bunch of other stuff. It was great.
What's fascinating to me is the lineage of all of this. How the designers and the companies that have produced the game just kind of bounce around.
Well, so in this case, the series is originated with Avalon Hill, right? But there's also a predecessor game called Lee versus Grant, which is, I believe, a Joe Bukowski design. That it starts to incorporate some of these ideas, and that was out of Victory Games, which, of course, was owned by Avalon Hill. So Avalon Hill sells out to Hasbro. Multi-Man licenses ASL from Hasbro, and at some point, I think a little bit later, they licensed Great Campaigns of the American Civil War as well, and released Grant Takes Command, which was I believe it was in development at Avalon Hill when the dots sold out. So which is why it looks exactly like an Avalon Hill game and not like a Multi-Man game. It's in the Avalon Hill style box and all that. And then several years went by until Multi-Man decided, hey, we're really going to try to revive this series, and they did a new game, which is Battle Above the Clouds, which is the Chattanooga and Chickamauga campaigns, which I've got a big playthrough of on the channel, so check that out if you want to.
I've been trying to watch that when you guys.
Yeah, we played to concession at the point at which the Confederates were just kind of outmaneuvered. So, and then they redid Stonewall Jackson's Way as Stonewall Jackson's Way 2, which also includes an additional module called All Green Alike, which is First Manassas, First Bull Run. It pretty much happens at the same place, right? So it's the same map, so why not include First Bull Run, right? But it's one of the, it's the first big battle of the war, so there's like a bunch of special rules for it, because everybody's, as they said, all green alike, right?
Yeah, nobody knew what they were doing.
And then it's
Nobody
also really interesting to see like the stuff out west where there's much less of a command efficiency disparity between the Union and the Confederates, right? So in Battle Above the Clouds, instead of the Confederates just winning all ties, on a 1, 2, or 3, the Union wins the tie. On a 6, the Confederate wins the tie, and on a 4 or 5 tie, you check to see if a Confederate commander has decided that Braxton Bragg is a dick for that day. So,
have you been to these battlefields?
no, I have not. There was actually serious talk of us going to Chattanooga.
South Mountain's only 6 hours from you.
Yeah, well, Chattanooga's not all that far either, really. I think it's about 6 hours, something like that. Maybe a little longer. It's almost in Georgia.
Yeah, Antietam's. From Ohio, it's only about 6.5, 7 hours.
Yeah. Well, the other thing is, if we zoom out on this map, it's on the roads. It's on the.
And
it's on the other map.
Frederick has become a bedroom community for DC now. Like it's.
Oh yeah.
Pretty. Yeah, it's a gorgeous town though. It's like a. It's very the historic architecture still around. The downtown has like an art district. Columbus. Think of Short North.
Okay.
Expand it out, make it more about like art districty kind of thing, and that's a large portion of Frederick.
Okay, that's neat. I mean, we were right down
cool.
here for Winter Offensive. Actually, it takes place in this right in this area.
Yeah, outside Frederick.
It's just that it's in January, so
yeah,
going and walking around at the Antietam battlefield was not something that we really seriously considered at that time in the snow.
I've wanted to go to Antietam, like if you go in September when they do the anniversary one. They're not going to do it this year, where they put the votives out, the candles out, in the bags. I forget what you call them, but they put one out for basically all the casualties.
Nativity.
They're all over everywhere.
That would be
Sounds
cool.
Amazing. Yeah.
Yeah, it's on my wish list, but probably not this year.
No. Unfortunately, we were gonna go to South Mountain and like look for bed and breakfast and stuff and stay, but so much for that.
Yeah, I've been fortunate to spend a lot of time in Tennessee and in Maryland and in Georgia. So I've been to most of these, Antietam and Gettysburg and Fredericksburg, and it's interesting. The problem is, and I guess it depends on your viewpoint, right? But just civilization encroaching.
Mm-hmm.
Yep.
It gets harder and harder, when you've got a housing division in the middle of a battlefield to to see it.
Yeah, and that's a problem even at Gettysburg.
Yeah, I think Gettysburg's done a better job than most, at least the conservatory, the organization that tries to buy up as much of the contiguous land. And
and it doesn't hurt to have a big national cemetery either. That always helps.
Mm-hmm.
Some places, like if you go to Atlanta, it's really hard to envision, because a lot of it's just in woods or something that there's been no preservation.
Right.
I'm sorry, gentlemen. Actually, I have to drop off now.
Okay.
Thanks so much.
All right. Yeah.
Brant, thanks so much, Gary.
Yeah. Like I said, there was. You guys, if you guys don't have contact information for me, let me know, so we can maybe play some more of this at some point in the future.
Yeah, I would. I would love to do that. I'm on your Discord, so.
Yep. Very good.
Absolutely.
Awesome.
You just have to promise better die rolls, man.
Yes. Well, that's up to you. Well, I'm on record as saying I don't trust the Vassal die roller. So.
Yes. Absolutely.
So,
all right.
Have a great night,
gentlemen.
All right.
You too.
All right.
Bye.
See ya.
All right. So I think we're going to wrap this up. So Brant, thanks for coming by. I am going to I'll send you a Discord invite in Discord.
That would be great.
And we'll see if we can coordinate something later. So
That would
I
be
will be
good.
happy to play this. I love this game system. So it's one, like I said, it's one of my favorites. So we're going to sign off now. I'd like to thank everybody for coming by. This has been the Armchair Dragoons virtual assembly. Let's hope we can do one of these in the future as well. So everybody have a great night.